All right, some people love it, some people hate it. Today, we're talking Jack Daniels. Jack Daniels, good old number 7, Jack Daniels Black. It's known by a dozen names, and all of us have seen it, and most of us have an experience with it. Some of those stories are good, and some, maybe not so good. But let me tell you a little bit about their story. So while I pull up the stats, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through just a brief history of where Jack Daniels comes from and how has come to be what it is today. So it's a distillery founded in 1875 by a man named Jasper Daniel. So in 1884, he bought a piece of property and moved it to where it still is distilled today. Now, he introduced the square bottle in 1897, but it wasn't until 1904 at the World's Fair when the brand would truly skyrocket and become a worldwide sensation of the time. Now, unfortunately, Jack Daniels was not immune to the effects of Prohibition, and they were forced to close the doors for many years, not opening again until 1938, where they were only open for a few years, till once again World War II shut them down. But they would not be stopped. In the late 1940s, they opened again and continued to produce the spirit that we know and love. They sold the distillery to Brown-Forman in 1956, who continues to produce it to this day, and it is, in fact, the best-selling bourbon in the world. Now, I know many of you are saying, but it's Tennessee whiskey, it's not bourbon. It uses the Lincoln County process, which is filtered through maple charcoal. Okay, yeah, you're right, it absolutely is Tennessee whiskey. But it's bourbon too. Mash bill, as you saw, 80% corn, 12% rye, 8% mash, aged in new oak barrels. That qualifies it as a bourbon. But it's still just Tennessee whiskey. Yeah, it is Tennessee whiskey, but it's not just Tennessee whiskey. You see, international trade rules require that Tennessee whiskeys be straight bourbon, in fact. So at first blush in the glass, it has a nice, beautiful straw color. Somewhere between straw and honey. A slightly oily density allows it to cling to the glass. And on the nose, honey, banana, a hint of sour cherry, maybe just the slightest hint of oak and corn. But everything relatively well balanced. Nothing overpowering, perfect for someone who wants to experience an easy drinking whiskey. So the palate starts out a little thin, but it ramps up a little. It's not what I would call delicate, but it's on the delicate side. I do get that hint of banana still. I get that hint of cherry. In fact, the cherry's brought out a bit more. And a dash of cinnamon from the oak in the aging process, and possibly from the rye. A nice creamy texture that has a nice, well-balanced finish that lingers and then trails off. So the next time you're out with friends and you want to try an interesting whiskey and surprise your friends, order up a Jack Daniels neat and explore it. Try it blind, see if you can tell what it is. But there's one question that has no doubt, and that is, Jack Daniels is the world's best-selling bourbon. Thanks again for joining me. As always, like and subscribe. Drop a comment down below and tell me how I'm wrong. But between now and then, here's to good friends, good times, and good whiskey. Cheers.